welcome everybody. We have a very special lady with us, Markel Hammond. She is the founder and CEO of Safe in Harm's Way. She is 3 times bestseller author. She is not only survival, but advocate for another thrivers. She's passionate to bring freedom to global, survivals and healing. She is also the founder of abusive strategy solutions. Thank you so much, Caroline, for finding time. And thank you so much also for sharing your story in Expose documentary. And thank you for being on the Expose podcast today. I really, really admire your work, and you are such a role model for me. And I think a lot of many others watching us on the replay. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. You're just such a blessing in my life. Oh. You will send me pictures of the ocean when you're living by it and video record it because you know how much that soothes my soul. And it's lovely to wake up or to go to bed and get a WhatsApp from you or a message from you, and all you've done is record the ocean. I think that chick is amazing. I'm so glad that we get to know each other.
Thank you. I need to do it more now. Not just once in a while. But that's cool. So Caroline, you are a legend. You're creating your legacy. Mm-hmm. So I would love to know your beginnings. Like, if you could share with us, if you would like to share your story, and what was the primary reason why you are doing what you're doing today, why you feel so passionate?
I never mind sharing my story because I know that when I share my story, that someone else, whoever hears it, is going to feel less alone in the world. And that happens every time. Every time I do a podcast, anytime I do an interview, anytime that I'm on the radio and I share my story, the feedback I get, especially when I'm in front of people, and I'm giving a presentation to 300 people, there is a line waiting for me after. And people will share with me their most intimate moments and their most intimate stories because I have shared mine. And then suddenly, not only does everybody have a vocabulary for what they're living with, but they have an instant community and a handful of solutions that they can take the next step in order to heal. So I don't mind sharing my story. And my story actually begins, I think, as you heal from abuse, as you heal from toxic relationships, you're able to look back and see patterns. And so I'll start with that for me. I realized through this evolution that I had a pattern of believing that someone could tell me they loved me and also be mean to me, and that was okay, that was my form of evolving for the first 49 years of my life. And it was something that when you have it happen to you and you have this person who claims to love you, and that person also tells you you're horrible, or that person also, destroys your room, makes life miserable for you, and then comes back and says, but I love you. It starts to create that pattern. So that followed me through life. But what also followed me through life, which I think helped me heal and create Safe in Harm's Way and abusive strategy solutions, is that I am a connector. I am somebody who connects people. I do not lose contact with folks. I still have and regularly speak with people I've known since I was 3. And I'm also a very good salesperson. It's been my entire career. And I've had the opportunity to work for Fortune 500 companies and billion-dollar brands throughout my career. And those 2 things are what took me out of that pattern of I love you, yet I'm going to throw you against the wall. I love you, but I'm going to scream in your face. And it took that big instance for me, which I'll get to in a second, that started to shatter that pattern and started to bring out what I call my superpowers so that my cape fit a little better, and I could fly in my superpowers a little bit further. And that is the evolution that has led us today. So let me talk about that instance in that what happened and started to shatter the pattern. And that was in March of 2016. And I was, oh gosh, about 4 weeks away from my planned and paid for wedding when I discovered that the man who claimed to love me and would look me in the eyes and claim to love me had also been living a very secret life. He had been living a life that I knew nothing about, without my knowledge, without my consent. And he had done that from the very beginning of our relationship, throughout the entirety of our relationship. And that actually, discovery of his secret life is what made me leave. If I had not discovered that, I would have married him. Even though in the entirety of that relationship, I was living with sadness, worry, lies, screaming, pain, fear. I could have told you those things, but I would never have said I was being abused. Not ever. I could tell you I was awful fearful whenever he would come home from work, because I never knew what mood he would be in. I could tell you how painful it was to be thrown against a wall. I could tell you how much fear was involved when I used to have to run and hide in bathrooms and he would scream and pound on the door. I would never say I was being abused, because I had that pattern. And I also had something that I believe, because I've experienced time and time again, that survivors have. And survivors are intelligent, beautiful, empathetic people who believe that their kindness can change somebody. And when you start a relationship, it doesn't look like abuse. It starts out as love. Starts out with flowers, starts out with sex, starts out with poetry, starts out with great meals and dancing. And then it evolves or devolves into experiences and actions of the sadness, worry, lies, fear, screaming, and pain. So survivors stay because of their empathy. They stay because of their intelligence. They stay because they're fixers. And most importantly, they stay because a huge chunk of the time, abusers craft a story with that love in the very beginning of, oh dear, oh sweet pea, you're the only one who loves me. I've never had a love like you. I mean, what dreams do we want to have? You're the only person in my life I trust. And that is the story that survivors believe, along with the promises of love that survivors keep going back to in the face of the devolving relationship. So let me pause there for a second and ask you, is there anything that I've said so far that you'd like me to elaborate on, or that I can help tease out a little bit better if there's any confusion?
Well, it makes me feel like somebody's playing with my mind, right? Like I
Yes.
feel like somebody loves me so much, and in the same time, they act opposite, so it's
Yes.
contradictory, and then they still bring those words which are like, I am much my love languages are affirmation. So when somebody talks to me like this, I am like, oh my god, he really is different. Right?
Yes.
So I feel like it's going to be the honeymoon again, and so I feel like I got what I wanted, and I have the I like to be in attention, right? So for me, that is feeding my childhood trauma of feeling not enough. Then I feel like, oh, I'm visible again, I'm important again. I got
Yes.
the time of no contact is over, right? So I feel on the same, I feel like it's going to last.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And think about this. When things get horrible and a person decides, and right now I'm using female pronouns because
Yeah.
I'm a woman, it's my story. I realize that this happens to men. I realize this happens to people and that are gender fluid. So I'm not eliminating anybody from the story of abuse. I'm using my pronouns for my story, which is she, her. So when you think about that, what you just said, I'm curious what you think, because what happens in that dynamic, and because you're intelligent, because I'm intelligent, because as I said, people who enter into these relationships are intelligent. A person thinks, you know, if I just sat down and talked to them and told them how I'm feeling and really told them how much it hurts my feelings, they're going to stop, because
Right.
I'm going to be very honest. And all that does is give the abuser ammunition to know how to hurt you more, because you're not dealing with a person who's respecting your feelings. You're dealing with a person who's getting some kind of energy and juice and power of hurting the person they claim to love. So when someone in that kind of relationship sits down and says, can we talk about this? Can we solve this? This is what I'm feeling. It just gives them more pages to add to their book, and then used against them. And then after used against them, factor in, and by the way, love, this is all your fault. If you were just different, I mean, you used to be so fun, and really you're going to be mad about this now? You're going to create a problem with this now. And all you did was tell somebody who claimed to love you what you were feeling. So if that is happening to anyone, that's the biggest red flag and the start. And it usually happens in the beginning. So it's a big red flag and a big start to what is to come, and even get more egregious as the relationship goes on.
Wow, thank you for sharing. So what you want to say by that is that if somebody is inconsistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what is that red flag we should look at the very beginning of, you know, the dating or whatever.
Yes. Yes. Because that doesn't change. That only gets worse. That only gets worse. And you may not be able to identify it.
Right. Right.
You may be able to say, well, this hurts my feelings. Or you may be able to say, I don't know what feels wrong in this, but something doesn't feel right in this relationship.
Yeah.
That's your body and your brain giving you the first signal of, this is not healthy for you. So even if you can't explain it, even if you can't list the things that are making you feel sad, worry, lied, all of those things,
yeah,
when your body and your brain gives you that possibility, act on that. Act on that.
And our body is so smart, right? We had a conversation a while ago, I think, right, about how our body really gives us symptoms, right? Either through just, you know, stomach issues,
Yes.
sleep,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, stomach issues. In mine, it's in my ears. I
Ear?
can, in like right behind my ears, and
Oh, yeah.
they'll even get really red when
I have the same thing.
Yeah,
But
right.
that's what's the name? That's the Vargus
Yeah,
nerve.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's vibrating to say, well, things aren't right. What you're hearing is accurate. And that's the other thing. If someone says something mean to you and you go, well, certainly I heard that incorrectly, because they don't mean it because they love me. No. If someone says something mean to you, you don't have to accept a life of that. And all these things we're discussing, whether it's our body, whether it's our ears, whether it's our stomach, whether we can't name it, whether we can really only name our feelings, all of those things are the points when folks can really settle in and say, this relationship is not going to be healthy. Because the beautiful part of being an intelligent, fiercely intelligent, beautiful, empathetic, problem-solving person is you can use those tools on yourself to create a better life. Because I am here to say those tools never evoke change in another person. You're not responsible for another person's change, and you're not responsible to be the only love that can save them. That's all the work they have to do.
You are
And
not responsible. I love that. Right. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. So that's the part of the violence and the toxicity in relationships, and that's how it begins. And that's why people have a hard time leaving. And that's why people come back, because you talked about it, a love bomb. Okay, I'm seen again. They've stopped ignoring me. They've stopped telling me to shut up. They've stopped not talking to me. They're talking to me again, and they're showing up with flowers again, and they're telling me how much I love them again.
Mhm.
And so, all is right in the world.
Mhm.
Safe in Harm's Way just did a campaign that we launched in Times Square, along with domesticshelters.org and Neon, which is an IPG health company based out of Manhattan. Incredibly fabulous people. We premiered it in Times Square, and then we rolled it across the country on outdoor media and made 1 billion impressions, 1 billion opportunities for people to get help. And the website we created is called thelastimsorry.com. Because how many sorries does a person get in a relationship? I'm sorry, boom, it happens again. I'm sorry, boom, it happens again. And so thelastimsorry.com is a first in class, never before done website where people actually get to go and identify their feelings. We don't talk about abuse. We identify the feelings in a relationship. It is built for men. It is built for women. It's built for people in the queer community. It's built for people of color. It's built for people who are medically compromised. Because one way that abusers can abuse someone who maybe is diabetic, withhold their insulin. It's built for people who are immigrants, because one way that an abuser can issue power and control and keep them with them is to say, I'm going to get you deported. So it is built, thelastimsorry.com is built for people to be able to identify their feelings. And at the very end, they get the next best resource that will help them to find safety, health, healing, and community. So it's built for folks, no matter who you are, to use. And it just looks like a benign website. So it looks like you're taking a quiz online. And if you get scared, you hit the exit mark. And that person who might have been watching you cannot open a browser for over 48 hours. So it's not as if you can go to bed and they're going to pop open your computer and think, what was he looking at? Or what was she looking at? What were they looking at? That browser that you've been on seeking help and guidance is locked out. Yeah.
Well, I acknowledge this idea, thelastimsorry.com.
Mm-hmm.
We can put the link.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way for people. We wanted to create something that didn't talk about domestic violence, but recognized the feelings, which people can label,
Right.
but never really identify as being abused. So we
Right.
want to bypass that and get folks the help they need quicker.
Validate.
Or, yeah.
That's what makes you feel, honored, respected again, like somebody see you.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Like you mentioned something about feelings and emotions, and I remember, just quickly, there may be somebody who, just like myself, didn't know how to express the feelings when I was in relationships, right? I just had, low emotional intelligence. I came from this kind of background in family.
Right.
So I learned it in the therapy, just
Right.
recognizing what I feel, because what I felt was mostly depressed.
Right. And that's another indicator. If you're really, really sad in your relationship the majority of the time, turns out you don't have to be. Turns out there are ways and people, because I'm a firm believer in putting in a boundary for the people who make you feel bad. And that boundary is done so that you can recognize yourself and start to find where your joy is, and start to find where your health is, and start to find where your happiness is, away from the person who is bringing on those depressions, bringing on those opportunities, and telling you, well, this is all your fault. a boundary allows that. And I think people look at boundaries when I talk to them about it, and it seems as if, well, that means I have to forever stop loving somebody. I mean, and the thought of forever cutting somebody off and stopping loving them is really hard for folks to do, because you're wired. If you're a fiercely intelligent, I'm going to say it, if you're a fiercely intelligent, empathetic, problem-solving human, you don't cut people off. I mentioned it as my superpower. I had to learn, and I learned this from my nephew, that the best way to describe boundaries is through a window and very far away. So he was 4, and a dog jumped on top of him, and the dog was about 120 pounds. And here's my nephew, and he's 4, and the dog wasn't being mean; he just wanted to play. And I thought, oh gosh, my nephew's going to be really afraid of dogs for the rest of his life. And about 2 weeks later, I was standing with him in the kitchen, and we were playing, and he says, Aunt Carolyn, I love dogs. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you love dogs, because I know you were afraid of dogs a couple of weeks ago. And he said, yeah, I love dogs best when they are through a window and very far away. And I think you can still not have to cut off love, but put enough distance between someone that they are through a window and very far away before you ever go near them. If they're so horrible, you can imagine getting a crane and 4 construction workers to put up concrete barriers between you and the person that you're trying to put a boundary in place in. It just means you've made the choice for yourself to focus on what feels good to you and feels healthy to you. And when you do that, you suddenly realize that life is so much better away from the person who is making you feel sad, worried, wonder if you're being lied to, screaming fear and pain.
Well, thank you for sharing that story with your nephew. I remember that story. You shared that story also in the documentary. I was like thinking, your nephew is so intuitive, right?
He is.
He is, right? Because of that's where the wisdom comes from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we think like it's, well, anyways, I thought it's pretty cool because of we know many times it's something not okay, but it is not enough to know.
Yes.
Right? It's different thing to actually act different based on what I.
Right.
So I before we get to the next question, I just think that what you are talking about, it's coming back to the belief you mentioned that I'm responsible. I can make you like me or not like me, right? I can make you love me more, or that I'm responsible for somebody's feelings, which is coming from that childhood, right? And
yes,
especially like myself, I had this anxious attachment style. So for me, it was a perfect way. I mean, the anxious, which is just kind of based on that belief, basically, I can make you love me more if I act better, because I'm not good enough. So I'm going
you
to
said
prove.
it. Yes. Oh my gosh, you said it. If I act better.
So when it comes to we could go and go and go. This is just one of my favorite topics. I mean, it is because of the more, for anybody who's listening, is probably you're in the state of maybe leaving a relationship, or maybe, you're in the state of healing your body. And so what does it take to break that trauma bond, to actually, somebody said, chemically withdraw from that?
Yes.
And addiction, I think you used that last time when we talked for the documentary. Would you like to share just shortly, because it takes probably
Well,
therapy?
that's the thing with you and I. We could probably sit down for a weekend and a case of wine or really good natural juices and healthy meals, either one, and solve all these problems. But when it becomes part of the equation that you're deciding to leave, it's really great to, first of all, choose your most trusted soul. Let them know what's happening. If you're in the process of crafting an escape plan, or you're in the process just of breaking off a relationship, and ask for help with that. Who's the person you trust most, and who can you say, hey, I need some help? And I could point folks in the right direction because there's well-meaning friends, usually in these kinds of relationships, who try to sit down with the person and say, I don't know that this is healthy for you. That's somebody to go to and say, I don't think I've listened to what you were saying. I don't think this is healthy for me. I'm going to need some help to break free. I think the next part of that is to think about solutions that you can create in your life, especially if you don't even know what you want next. And that is to look at the world outside your window. For Safe in Harm's Way, we have a content creator named Courtney, and Courtney Beth does the world outside your window. And that's getting out into the world again, separate from the relationship. If money's tight, there are shelters for animals around every city that need dog walkers, that need people to get the dogs out to exercise. Go volunteer at a shelter. Go volunteer at a dog shelter. Go and contact a domestic violence shelter. And there's a beautiful, beautiful resource that we use at both Epizon Strategy Solutions and Safe in Harm's Way. And that's our great partners at domesticshelters.org. And you can plug in your zip code at domesticshelters.org, and up will pop every single vetted and true shelter and community in your zip code. See if they need volunteers. See if you can help. And guess what? If you are someone that needs counseling and wants to have that, but maybe you don't have insurance or funds are tight, you do not have to live at a shelter in order to get their services. You can sign up for their free counseling. You can sign up for their free programming, and you can utilize the services of a shelter without having to live there. The other thing you can do at Safe in Harm's Way, we have online therapy classes that you can join that are from across the world, and it's guided and funded by an organization called Healing the Wound. And that's going to be on the safeinharmsway.org website. And you can access Healing the Wound via our link. And I'll put that in the show notes for you. And then folks can get onto online counseling 4 or 5 times a week. At safeinharmsway.org, we also have a relationship with a group that does trauma-informed yoga for free. So you can log on, do trauma-informed yoga, and moving your brain and your body differently changes everything. So you need to engage your mind, your body, your friends, and start doing things differently to see what fits as you're breaking that addiction. Because if you're so busy engaging in those things, it makes it more difficult to want to go back. And I always counsel folks, if you are in the process of leaving and all of a sudden you feel like, well, wait a minute, something's wrong. Wait, something's wrong. I made a mistake. I think I made a mistake. I should probably go back because my body feels weird. And I'm missing him, and I need to go back. No, that's the moment when your body and your brain finally start to exhale and be fine with the peace that you're living with, and the peace that you have in yourself, and the ability you have, because you're intelligent, because you're empathetic, because you're brilliant, that your body is finally relaxing to not constantly being on edge. But because that feels a little weird, because that means you've been living for years potentially with that heightened ick in your body, it feels weird when it starts to happen. And folks confuse that with, oh my gosh, I'm missing. I need to go back to that relationship. I've made a mistake. And actually, your body is giving a weird hallelujah to you. It just seems a little odd. I guarantee you in 2 weeks, that's going to be like a jumping for joy, cartwheels, fireworks moment where your body actually gets to just relax. The other thing that happens at those moments when you've been doing the things and you've stopped the contact and you've stopped engaging with the person you were in a relationship with is, if they have not found another person, they are going to come back to you full force. They're going to come back with puppies, kittens, everything to make you come back to them. And that's when you know you're winning. Because when they get that back to you, it is not love. It is not, I have changed. It is not, They're like, wow, so she really means it this time. Okay, so if she really means it this time, then I better double down on what I'm doing to convince her that I love her again. And the second thing that happens is you've just taught them, okay, well, I know that if something happens, it took her 4 weeks this time before she came back to me. I just got to wait 4.5 weeks and she'll come back again. You actually give the abuser a playbook of how long you're willing to be away from them before they come back. So if that happens, and I shouldn't say if, when it happens, that's when you know you're winning at your own worthiness. You are winning at the own pattern of breaking an addiction, breaking a negative, dysfunctional relationship. You're winning. And that's also when you should pretty much go out, and if you love cake, get yourself a slice of cake. If you love, to have a fabulous coffee and a scone, go get yourself a fabulous coffee and a scone. Do something to celebrate yourself. Get your nails done, get your hair cut, because you, my friend, when that happens, are winning the game of breaking that cycle of abuse.
I love all what you said, because of that's actually, showing yourself that I deserve to be treated with respect.
Yes.
I'm worthy of.
Yes. And if you have children, it's really important with that person. It's really important that to realize that at that moment, as your body is starting to exhale and settle into the new piece, your children's bodies are starting to exhale and figure into a new piece. And they might actually start acting up more then because they feel more safe. And child acting up is not indicative of not, I need to go back because, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have separated them from their father, or I shouldn't have separated them from their mother, or whatever. It's actually the child feels safe and they start to let go of their emotions and feelings. And guess what? Just as you can go to any shelter and not live there and get therapy, services, so can your children. So get folks into therapy, get them out into the world, get your children meeting, work with your school district to help them understand what's happening in case there's any behavioral problems at school. But it is most definitely a sign of relaxation, peace, and safety that it is, we need to go back to dad, or we need to go back to mom, because that's the part of the equation that folks fall into with going back. And the reality is that's just everybody finally allowing your body to feel peace.
Yeah, I love what you mentioned, to include in the family system children, right? Because of even they haven't seen the abuse, they feel it, right?
Oh, they feel it. They know it. They know it.
And for their future, their relationship. So it is so important investment of time and energy to actually, whatever it takes.
Right.
Right.
And that's, I think, really important too, to talk about that. While they may not see it, they do feel it, but they hear it. And imagine how powerless that is for a child to hear the yelling and the screaming. Right. How powerless it is for a child to hear the crying, to hear the thumps against the wall of somebody's body being thrown, to hear that and feel so unsafe and powerless. There is going to be needing some interactions with school districts, with therapists, with school systems that allow for services to help children process that trauma in their childhood. So to your point, it's not taken into their adulthood.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And even when they act out, it means they need that attention, right? They actually are feeling safe to express, like you mentioned, for maybe first time, that they will not be punished if they express that first time, that freedom. So it's actually, so important, the timing, like anywhere in the, whatever you do in business, the same in therapy, timing is everything, right? Because we sometimes tend to postpone, like I will, start therapy when I get more money or when I get more time, like postponing and not realizing that it comes to the belief I'm not my sleep quality, or my the way how I interact with myself, my children, is less
Yes.
important, right?
Right.
So we just so normal at the
Yes.
beginning because of you've been through so many difficult moments in that relationship. It actually changed the way your brain, your amygdala, hippocampus
Yes.
works, right? So you're actually changing through the therapy and through the actions, showing yourself, hey, this is, the most important thing, right? Like
Yes.
the mentality is like, if I had a broken arm, I would go to hospital. But when my
Yeah.
it's not, I don't like to use broken mind, but somewhere like, so much disbalance, right?
Disbalance. I love that. Yeah.
Right. It's so to recognize that if I don't do it now, I'm just depriving myself, the peace I do deserve, right?
Yes.
And it's not going to, happen, as I think, like fast, but that allowing yourself actually persist in the healing, right? That
Yes. Yes. And that is so important part of the equation to realize that you are worthy of that investment in yourself. And I talk about that a lot. And, when I'm either in front of employers at Epizon or I'm talking as part of Safe and Harm's Way, and folks will say to me, I feel so much better when you talk about how hard it is. And at first I thought, well, wait a minute. But I do talk about how hard it is because folks can look at me now and I'm 6 years out and think, oh my gosh, she's got a great life. And I do. And there are days that I spend half a day in bed. There are days where I cry a lot and I might not be able to label it. And I'm still doing therapy. So I really want to be honest with folks that if you're on that track, that if that's something you're experiencing it, that's actually a great sign that you're continuing to heal. And the more you work through it and allow your body just to be sad, think about all the times you just put on a brave face to get through the day, that you just shut your mouth in order not to have a fight, not to appear sad in front of the kids. And meanwhile, you go into the bathroom and cry. You shoving down those feelings and not experiencing it, allow yourself to feel those feelings. One of my dearest friends, Kathy, always says, healing is not linear. It is not a one and done. And I can usually get myself out of it faster when I allow myself to go ahead and feel those sad moments. And I just had that this week. I mean, I had a moment that there were so many great things, but there were a couple of significant things going wrong. And I just sat and cried. And I got a message from somebody who said, oh my gosh, I love what you do. Please don't stop doing it. And I had Spotify on, and Spotify was sending me all these beautiful, the universe was sending me all these beautiful affirmations and music from Spotify. And I just was like, I just want to be sad right now. Everybody you just sometimes have to be sad in the right now. And that's okay too, because my daughter says it can be both. You can heal, you can create a big life, you can build a community, you can put boundaries where you need. And there are also times you can be sad about it. It can be both, and that's completely normal.
Right. And thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing, because I do experience the same cycle. And I think I wanted to say something different. I already surprised myself with what I say. Will come to me, but basically to trust, that's what I wanted to say. It comes all to the place of self-trust, that I do know that, that it's not like you said, your friend said, linear, right? That after the period of sadness, there is going, when I acknowledge and validate that sadness, when I actually sit down without, I don't think it's necessary always to call it like experience why I'm feeling this way, right? Just sit because of
it just
coming
is.
out.
Yeah.
Right. So that there will be, if I embrace that, or just how difficult it feels like, but still sit with that, there will be a moment of healing, that there is something to be healed, maybe not, without expecting, but kind of allow yourself, right?
Yes.
I would like to touch that. What does it take to, when I look at your life, I see, like you mentioned, many of your patients, clients, they're like, oh, you have this perfect life, like it looks like outside, right? So, and I'm sure you do have moments when you are like, oh my God, like this is pretty amazing, like I'm really doing this.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So what does it take to live from that highest version of best version of yourself? What does it take in those 6 years, right, of your journey, or people you work with, based on your observation? What does it take to go from that feeling, I'm responsible for somebody's feelings, to the place like I own my feelings, and I cannot, be responsible for yours, like
I will answer this question in the best way without actually no. If I get emotional, I get emotional. I just wrote about that this morning in my journal, and I'll show it because I'm going to publish it. I'm actually going to publish the pictures of my journal. It looks like a mad. Can you see it? It looks like a crazy
Yes.
mad person
Wow.
wrote, right?
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
It just was like,
no, it's beautiful. You should see mine.
just it was great. It was manic, and not a bad manic. It just was coming to me, and I'm going to share it and I'm going to share the visuals of it, and I'm going to talk through it and put it out into the world, because what I realized today in a big epiphany is never, ever, ever when I left, I was living in my car for 6 weeks because he wouldn't vacate the house. And he kept taunting me with, oh, sweet pea, don't worry, I'll find you and we'll die together. So I was very afraid to live with anybody. I was afraid of what he would do to them as well as me. I did stay with my kids, and actually that was an incredible bonding time for my family. If I could hide my car and walk, and I did it, not all the time, but in limited spaces, and because we were living at that point, 7 of us in a 800 square foot apartment. We had blow up mattresses on the floor, in the kitchen, in the hallway to the bathroom. I didn't do that often, but that is, my daughter and her fiance are incredible humans for even being brave enough to allow me to live there when I did. To go from that, I never in a million years would have imagined that my brand and my messaging would be on Times Square. Never would have done it. What I started to do along the way, though, is dream my wildest dreams, even if they sounded absolutely insane. And I went on a girls' trip to New York City. I have a friend who was working there, and she said, hey, you guys come along. I'm working. You can stay in the hotel room. You guys could, do the city during the day. And so we did it. And the 4 of us, and I'm going to say their names, Kathy, Colleen, and Shannon, and I stood in Times Square, and I said, back in 2017, I don't know how. I can't even tell you when. But someday soon, I am going to be on Times Square, and my message is going to be on those billboards. I didn't care how insane the dream sounded. I was going to keep speaking it, and I was going to keep writing about it. And then subconsciously, you start to make those choices. But the thing that has brought it together is the consistent therapy, the consistent working at it, the consistent building your friendships, building your family, building a life where the people who make you feel bad are through a window and far away, because the best people show up to take their place when you do that. And the consistent realization that I have a choice and I can give myself grace. Now, if my camera was mobile, I would show you, because all around my house, on bathroom mirrors, on closet doors, near the door handle, because I have to touch the door to go in, near the thermostat, right by where I brush my teeth, where my towel hangs, are Post-it notes that say grace and choice. Because I think for me personally, I am still in evolution in allowing myself to have grace about myself, about, I think one of the reasons we're aligned is that if I just act more, people will find me worthy and love me. If I am just giving more, people will find me worthy and love me. And I have two organizations. I've been spending time working 18 hours a day and maybe sleeping 4 hours and maybe waking up for an hour in the middle of the night and maybe going back to bed for another hour and a half for a lot of years at the same time I've been doing all of this work. And I just hired a health coach because I lost my job in October. I started doing these things full time, both Epizon and Safe and Harm's Way. And I had money left over in my HSA and I hired a health coach. And after completing an 18-page questionnaire and after taking all of this work, blood work and analyzing my genes and everything, his first words to me at our consultation was, you are actively dying more than you are living. And so grace and choice is everywhere. We all have it. We all have the ability to say, I am so worthy of myself. I'm going to stop working after 9 hours and a lunch break. I am so worthy of myself that I'm going to take a walk. I am so worthy of myself that I'm going to give myself the grace to know that I might mess up and there might be a day where I do work 18 hours again, but I'm going to go back and keep trying. I'm going to go back and keep doing those things. And so that part of the journey that's a very long preface to answer your simple question of when folks look at my life and think it's amazing, it is, and I am not discounting that. But it might have come at a cost of my health that I now have to reverse. So I can still do great work and we can still be our fabulous, intelligent, beautiful selves. And we can still know that we are worthy just as we are in an 8-hour workday or a 4-hour workday or whatever, in order to keep up our work. And I'm sure, you're building a documentary, right? You're building a brand, you're building a foundation. And the glamorization of put in this hard work to the expense of yourself, I no longer believe in, because I will no longer be actively dying more than I'm living. I will not do it. And so that's the part of healing that I think is so paramount. It goes back to what we were saying, is you have to do that hard work and it's not linear. And I can be 6 years out and have created an international thing that I never dreamed in my wildest dreams that I could create an international nonprofit. And I did it in 6 years and I'm going to keep doing it, but I'm going to do it at more of a healthy balance because I can manage that better and be actively living. Because I intend to be 103. I intend to let my curly hair go to dreads because it will in about 4 weeks. I intend to keep wearing bright red lipstick. I know that I'm going to be playing on the beach with my dogs and my grandkids and the cats, and we're going to be dancing and twirling around. And that dream can only come about if I take care of my health. And that's the journey for me personally that's happening. And I hope that that resonates with someone, to know that you have the choice and you also can give yourself grace in the process as you're learning it. And that's a beautiful part of the evolution too.
I'm so glad that you shared that, that beautiful moment of surrendering, right? Deciding I'm not going to sacrifice my health anymore, right?
Right.
Because of that's what I learned from you and others. It's not about the hard work. Many times it's just, like you mentioned, the relationships that we get to do it together.
Yes.
That actually allows us to open for new people coming in our lives, in the universe, working with those laws, right? That
Exactly.
when we are in the good well-being with the energy and rest, we are we can first have more ideas, which can
Mhm.
bring us more results that we could do
Yes.
it by ourselves, right?
Yes. Every time when I started to step away more and more, I would come back with bigger and better ideas that happened faster, that were implemented, and I had shorter work days because I actually took the time away from what I was doing. That's a beautiful thing. I'll also say there's a little sadness in the gap between when you find this out and when you look back and think, oh, so I've been doing this for a long time. There's a little sadness in that discovery gap is what I'm calling it. And that's okay. That's where the grace comes in. Okay, I know better now. I know that I can do better now. And aren't I lucky to be alive and breathing because I very easily could not have been when I escaped abuse. So those parts allow that grace to come about as a way for folks to continue to heal.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for sharing that important piece. Sorry for the sound in my background. My studio is just very active.
No worries, no worries.
So, Caroline, before we finish, would you like to share with us what are you working right now, an action call for anybody who's either watching us on YouTube, I'm going to upload it on YouTube, or on Safe in Harm's Way, or on Podcast Expos. What do you currently, what Apazon strategy solutions and Safe in Harm's Ways needs right now, and how we can support all what you are standing for?
Sure. So the biggest things that we have coming up now is several partnerships that allow folks to take advantage of services online that help make them more safe and also help them heal. So you can always connect with us at safeandharmsway.org and just fill out one of the forms for either getting more information or wanting to get our newsletter. The second thing that folks can do is contact me at Caroline at CAROLINE, Markel, MARKEL, Hammond, HAMMOND.com. And at CarolineMarkelHammond.com, you can sign up for any one of the programs we have, some coaching services. You can sign up for those and have the ability to connect with us that way. In our website, there are several things that you can do, which is one of them, if you are living in an abusive situation where you need to start documenting the abuse so that it is missable in court, Safe in Harm's Way has a fabulous responsibility and a partnership with Victims Voice app. We can get you a license that helps you document that for free if you contact Safe in Harm's Way. That relationship with Victims Voice app extends not only to survivors, but to first responders, to police officers, to lawyers, so that we can get that app, which helps keep people safe and document their abuse. Because people think, well, I'm going to keep a notebook and it's going to be, that's not always admissible in court. This app allows that admissibility in court. The second thing we have is with an organization called deleteme.com. And if you contact us at deleteme.com, then you get a discount off their programs. What that does is it removes every piece of your personal internet information from the internet. And I'll give you an example. It gives you a quarterly report. You will have your own privacy concierge that will remove you from the internet, your personal information, tell you exactly where you were found, tell you what's still pending, tell you how long it took them. And then they do it every quarter, because about every 3 months, your information can be put back out into the internet. And why is that important? When someone decides to leave an abuser, they have a 75% more likely chance of being killed in the first 3 months. It takes approximately 3 months for those data brokers to find your new apartment, to find your new home, to find where you're delivering mail, because it's all made public on the internet and then find you again. So people wonder why. Well, I escaped 3 months ago, and all of a sudden I'm getting headless Barbies in the mail. How does this person know where I live? They found it on the internet. So deleteme.com is a fabulous organization that we partner with that removes that information. The next thing we have is this, which I love. If you want to celebrate something and wine is your jam, we have a relationship with Boxed, B-O-X-T, drinkboxed.com. You can go on there, use a Save 20 discount, or Save 40 discount, gets you $40 off Napa grown grape wine. It's amazing. And they give money back to Safe and Harm's Way. So it allows you to contribute to Safe and Harm's Way. Those are the things that we are most talking about, along with our therapy, along with everything else. But we're trying to just broaden all the different resources we can bring to somebody that would help them heal in their journey, help them feel safer, help keep them protected in court. And then on episode strategy side, we work directly with employers. So we will come talk to any employer group. I create tailor-made solutions and training programs for employers. We have bookings out for the rest of the year, and people can go to epizonstrategy.com and they can sign up for those, and I can work on a tailor-made solution for their employer. And we do that, offering, again, all the same services I just said to employees and employers to give as a benefit to their employees. So we work with every program to make that happen across the world.
I am amazed with all the links and actions, and we are going to add those links in the comments. And thank you so much, Caroline, for all what your foundation for Safe in Harm's Way and Epizon Strategy Solution is doing, because of I personally think it's amazing, the idea with deleteme.com. I think it's so with the stories I hear, it's I've never actually heard about that website. So I'm glad we are able to bring a little more light to that website.
Exactly. And I'll give you a direct link that takes you to our Safe in Harm's Way website on deleteme.com. And if you plug in a Save 20 code, you get 20% off any plan you choose, so that you can decide which plan is most best for you and then implement the solution.
And support Safe in Harm's Way by getting a new bottle of wine.
Yes, exactly.
At the website,
Yeah.
bottlebox.com. We can add it. Thank you so much, Caroline, for being on Exposed podcast. And is there anything would you like to add before we finish? I'm pretty much, we're going to have you again soon.
Yeah. We, our conversations, again, it's beautiful. Thank you for having me. You are a bright, shining light of authentic investment. I mean, you come to people with a true and open heart, and that is who you are. And when you do that, you are positively impacting lives across the world, and just you being you. So if that is your superpower, and the cape fits better as you step boldly into it. And I have loved seeing the evolution of you and how you impact the world. I am so honored to know you, and I'm so grateful that I get to call you my friend. So thank you for having me today. And I intend to just keep holding your hand for the rest of our lives and changing the world. That's right.
I am so happy and grateful that the universe connected us, and that we are both actively living.
Actively living.
I like that so much. I just see your new post on Facebook before we finish.
I have to work it into a new hashtag. Yeah, so people can find me on actively living
or actively dialing. A good slogan.
Yes.
So how people can find you? I know you mentioned website. Is there Instagram link? Would you like to share?
Yeah, so it's just caroline.markel.hammond at Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn as well there, which is a great way to communicate. I have my own Caroline Markel Hammond on Facebook, so people can connect with me directly in a variety of ways for that. So it makes it really easy for folks to find me. And even looking at Safe and Harm's Way, there's a founder and CEO tab, and all my content is in there as well.